open up that Crystal Pepsi and get comfortable.
This is Dope Nostalgia.
Welcome, everybody, to Dope Nostalgia Podcast. And I am your host, Naomi. This has been a very exciting week for me because I've gotten to interview 3 former MuchMoreMusic VJs. Now, I remember a while back on the podcast, probably about 2 years ago, when I started a MuchMoreMusic series. I interviewed Erica M., as well as Steven, who is Ed the Sock. Both of those people were lovely to talk to, and I learned so much about working in the MuchMoreMusic environment back in the day. So now I find out that there's a documentary that's been made. It's called 299 Queen Street West. It's going to be played across Canada this fall. The VJs are coming along for the ride too. So what's going to happen is it's called the MuchMoreMusic Experience Tour. There will be a documentary screening followed by an intimate and interactive with the MuchMoreMusic VJs themselves. It's hitting up every major Canadian city, and you could be there. You can buy tickets at the website 299queenstreetwest.com. We're going to be at the Edmonton stop for the documentary, and that will be on November 8th, 2023. If you are interested, like I said, go to the website 299queenstreetwest.com. My first in the series of interviews is going to be with MuchMoreMusic alumni Bill Welychka. Not only did he start his career at MuchMoreMusic, but he went on to become one of the primary VJs at MuchMoreMusic when that channel was developed. Here's a little bit of background information on Bill Welychka.
Wikipedia moment.
Please bear in mind that Wikipedia is not to be taken as actual 100% fact. Any donkey could edit it at any time. If I'm reading you the artist's bio, that stuff is real truth.
Bill Welychka is a Canadian television personality, best known as a VJ for MuchMoreMusic and its sister station MuchMoreMusic from 1992 to 2005. Born and raised in Welland, Ontario, Welychka first joined Chum Limited in 1988 as a video editor for MuchMoreMusic, before transitioning to an on-air role as host of the channel's country music series, Outlaws and Heroes, in the early 90s. In 1995, he became host of the world music show ClipTrip, as well as taking on regular duties as a general video flow host. He stayed with Much for 5 more years until moving to MuchMoreMusic in 2000. In 2005, Welychka moved to CKEM right here in Edmonton to take on hosting duties for breakfast television when the station was rebranded as City TV. In 2006, Welychka moved to A Channel in Ottawa as the new weather anchor, remaining in this role till 2011. The following year, he joined CKWS-TV in Kingston, Ontario, where he remains as of 2023. He also writes a column for the city's Kingston Whig Standard and is a contributor to CKWS's sister's radio station, CFMK-FM. It is my honor to welcome Bill Welychka to Dope Nostalgia. I really appreciate you making the time. Thank you.
No, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, and I'm here from Edmonton, a place that you probably know quite well.
I did. Makes it sound like I was in jail. I spent a year in Edmonton at the, it was newly rebranded City TV.
Yes.
I was at MuchMoreMusic at that point, after MuchMoreMusic, for about 5 years, and just sort of done with music journalism. And they were creating this morning show. I've never done morning TV before, so I jumped at the chance. And yeah, I was very, very fortunate for that opportunity. Didn't know how much I'd miss friends and family in Ontario, though. So at the end of that year, I got a gig in Ottawa at the CTV affiliate.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a long way to be away. Like, it wouldn't be easy to get there and see them on a regular basis, I imagine.
I thought I could handle it. I had a nervous breakdown about 8 months in. Yeah.
Oh, but how were the breakfast TV days otherwise? And what did you enjoy about living in Edmonton?
I love the sports. love that city has. And that was the year they made it to the Cup finals and
Mm.
they lost. That was the year I remember White Ave. Every series they won, White Ave was getting crazier and crazier and crazier until by the final series they figured out how to stop people hanging from the streetlights. And basically, when you left a bar, you weren't allowed to walk across the street. You had to keep walking on the sidewalk. So what happened is during that final series, when everyone would, go in and out of bars, you have to keep walking. That way, there's no trouble. It's when everyone congregates around an intersection,
Hmm.
that's when the shit happens. So yeah, that was fun to see.
People hanging off light poles asking what the score is. I
Do you
remember
remember
stuff like
that?
that. Very
Do you
much
remember
so.
that time when they went for
Yeah.
the Cup Finals? Yeah. And then
Yep.
oddly, when I went to Edmonton or Ottawa rather, Ottawa went to the Cup Finals that year against Anaheim, and they lost I think 4 games straight. But that year Edmonton went. They barely limped into the playoffs. I remember that year.
We lost
And
Rolison right before the final games.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then, oh man, that was a sad night on game 7. But wow, like, uh, I hope now with the team that we have that we still have that kind of passion, but just without all the other hoodlum stuff,
Yeah,
don't need it.
yeah.
We didn't need it.
Well, I'm a Hawks fan, so I feel for you not getting Jonathan Taves. I was just hearing that Taves looks like he's done. Edmonton was going to
Mm.
pick him up, I think, and then his long COVID sort of just
Oh,
makes it difficult for him to play another season. So I have about
wow.
12 Taves jerseys in the closet behind me. Yeah.
Wow, that would have been something. But if he's retiring, I can understand that. Now, when you were growing up, you grew up in Welland, Ontario, correct?
Yeah, Niagara region.
Okay. What were you hoping to do and plan for your future as a child? What did you see, like as a teenager and everything, what you wanted to do at that time?
I think at one point I wanted to be Batman. That would have been like grade 7. No, that would have been like grade 1. And then maybe a cop.
Hmm.
I think I can't remember. That's a good question. I didn't really get curious about television until the final year of high school, and at that point, that was Barrie, Ontario. Rented a video camera for a high school project and from the library, and just had a great time with it, and ended up applying to a number of post-secondary institutions, ended up at Seneca for a 2-year radio and television broadcasting program, fell in love with editing, with video editing during that time, and was hired at Much in 1988 as an editor the week I graduated. I was very fortunate. I didn't actually fall into the
Very.
on-air thing until like 92 or something.
Outlaws and Heroes, was that the first show you did?
Country show, yeah. I helped create that when I started actually, and ended up hosting it, and then co-hosting it, and then just taking over full-time host of the country show, all the while still editing and producing because I love that behind the scenes stuff. I still do.
Mm.
And when they canceled that show because CMT started up in Canada, they felt a 90-minute weekly country show couldn't compete. And our director of music programming at that time, Denise Donlin, moved me over to regular flow programming. And that was
Mm.
94, I think. Yeah.
Hmm. So being part of regular flow for our listeners is basically your DJ moments or VJ moments when you got to introduce us the music.
Yeah, it's a 4-hour shift usually. And at the beginning of the shift, you go through the rundown, see what videos have been programmed. There was total freedom that I could change the rundown. I could add things. There'd be live interviews thrown in there sometimes a live performance and a live interview. And yeah, there was just so much freedom at that point. And I thought that's how all TV stations ran, really, but no, it was an anomaly. Yeah.
Were you writing your own interviews as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was nothing like that. No writers, nothing like that.
Mm.
How it worked for me, I don't know most people, but you'd get the CD, you get the bio. We had extensive files on artists. We had a researcher that would just go through magazine clippings, newspaper clippings, and keep files. There was no internet. That's how long ago it was. That's how old I sound. So you couldn't Google The Cure and find 25 articles on The Cure. So yeah, you'd just be given the latest CD. And luckily, I was a music fan, so I had a huge record CD collection that, I knew a lot of back catalog of a lot of the artists that I was interviewing anyway, and just a huge fan of music that I really didn't need a lot of research. If it was bands that I really wasn't into or whatever, yeah, still do a lot of research. But yeah, nothing was written. It was all very spontaneous, and that I think was the magical thing about Much, and never to be sadly replicated, never to be duplicated ever again. So I'm glad I was there.
It was even just from being in our living rooms, you felt like you're part of that environment as well. I remember I wouldn't change the channel. I was always addicted to Much as soon as we got cable TV. Just because you felt like you were part of it.
When I was in high school, I felt that way too. Yeah, there was that time where I was in high school for 3 or 4 years, watched MuchMusic as soon as I got home. Everybody did. As soon as school was over, go home, watch MuchMusic. Friends come over, what are you gonna do? Let's watch so much.
Yeah.
And so I was a huge fan of Christopher Ward and Steve Anthony and Erica M. And years later, getting a chance to work with them side by side, that was a huge thrill.
Surreal.
It really was. And I equate it to perfect circles. And there were thousands of perfect circles. I spent 17 years in that building. And when I look back, there was probably, almost 1,000 perfect circles where I had in my life, where I had Led Zeppelin's poster in my bedroom. I had The Cure's poster and pictures on my notebooks and in my locker. And years later, getting a chance to sit with Robert Smith or Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin or Jimmy Page, or pick one. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of artists that I considered heroes that I got a chance to interview. And it was beautiful. And I was getting paid for this. Unbelievable.
And being the big fan of these artists that you are, you probably had a lot more thought-provoking questions for them than some, I think that would have been really nice to have a chance to open up with someone who means so much to you,
I think so. And I never, I took pride in the fact that I didn't gush and, oh man, I've been a fan of yours for years. I have all your albums. Never said that. I think they could just tell with the conversation and with the interviews. And, I always approach an interview as never an interrogation, never a question, answer. I wanted it to be a conversation and let it flow. And I think just most artists would get a sense of that, okay, this guy, he knows what he talks about. He knows what he's talking about. He's all right. And that's when they give you stuff.
Oh, no.
Not give me money, but give me stuff as in terms of an interview. The sound bites, as we call them. Yeah.
And it's interesting for me too, interviewing an interviewer usually is one of those things that make me more nervous than anybody else. But I appreciate just having the conversation. I really do. Having, notes to look at, but just to be able to talk about everything usually.
It's two people talking shop, comparing notes, how they do it. And here's the thing, you get 10 interviewers and they're all going to approach an interview a different way. I watched interviewers just slide into the chair 2 minutes before they were live. No little pre-chat interview, and they would just, go into it, and it doesn't make for a great interview. I think I was fortunate in that I was an editor for so long that I was putting together a lot of specials and editing segments, watching a lot of interviews, taped interviews anyway. And, I learned from the best. I learned what worked, what didn't work in some cases. And, I think I was lucky that way. Very lucky. And the things that I still apply to this day.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Dope Nostalgia listeners, I love you and I thank you so much for being a part of this show and its success over the last 2 years. we have what's called Patreon for those who want to support the show financially. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a subscriber and get bonus content, early podcast release, all kinds of cool behind-the-scenes stuff, and more. There's different tiers of membership starting at only $1 a month. And we even have some special merch for you guys who are in it for the long run. So please, join our Patreon. It's at www.patreon.com/dope nostalgia.
Who creates the content we love?
I was a very emotional child.
But I was really shy growing up.
What makes them passionate?
I want to draw Saturday morning cartoons.
I could actually write songs.
Part of me comes out in a design that I do.
And why do they persist?
You know, I was in a bad mental spot.
It was a big sacrifice.
The hard-earned lesson is you have to do your own thing.
And this has been like a rebirth for me.
Hear their stories on your favorite podcast player.
Creators After Dark.
When you and your friends want to get down, there's only one way to do it. With a Much Video Dance. You provide the place. MuchMusic provides the lights, the sound, and the videos. Call Much Video Dance headquarters at this number. Brought to you by Henry. One phone call is all it takes to make it happen. And only Much Video Dances deliver the latest video hits, plus exclusive old school and vintage favorites in one all-inclusive package. Call Much Video Dance headquarters today. Brought to you by Henry. Oh, hungry. Oh, Henry.
I think you're one of the few VJs too who can expand more on the MuchMoreMusic era, because you did become part of it from the initial inception of it, weren't you?
Yeah, it was getting approaching 99 or 2000, and I was just sort of, I think Rick and I had to be part of Spice Girls Day. I think Rick was Sporty Spice, I was Posh Spice. A whole day long of Spice Girls videos and specials, and we did throws where, you know, I thought, okay, that's fun. That's the cool thing about Much. It gets very creative, thinking outside the box. A lot of it was the delivery of the music, not so much the music itself. It was how it was packaged and delivered to the audience. After a while, I just thought, okay, I don't want to be Posh Spice during a Spice Girls Day anymore. I love interviews. So MuchMoreMusic did come along, catered to a little bit of an older audience. And I jumped at that chance, and Denise Donlin said, yeah, how about in a year, I'll move you over to Much More. And I was grateful for that opportunity. Absolutely. I missed the live stuff, and then eventually Much More rolled out some, live presentations, broadened the parameters a little bit of the playlist, which was to me very important. It wasn't just the Celine Dion network anymore. We were playing a lot of good stuff. Yeah. You couldn't have had MuchMoreMusic without MuchMusic, of course.
MuchMoreMusic was wonderful, but it doesn't sit in my memory in the same way. Like you said, there were less live segments, and maybe that's partially why.
And I think it was buried in some cable stations across Canada. It wasn't part of the basic cable package for a lot of areas in Canada. You had to subscribe to it, whereas Much was, I think pretty much on basic cable across Canada. And, that was the beautiful thing about Much is, you talk about broadcasting and narrowcasting and who's your target audience. Male, female, 12 to 16, 17 to 21. Everybody watched Much.
Yeah.
And, it broke rules that way, and it broke a lot of rules. And I think that was the beautiful thing about it is there was no template before it. There was MTV in the US, but we were vastly different than that.
And then
we started to become more like MTV. And I think that was the beginning of the end.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There was something so incredible about the personalities at Much that there was something that everyone, each VJ offered something different for everyone. And
I don't think it was intentional. It was just the way it was presented. And I look back and I think, okay, I wasn't the cute one. I wasn't the wacky one. I wasn't the political one. Hopefully what you got was just someone that dug music, dug all kinds of music, really enjoyed doing interviews, loved traveling, loved putting together hour specials. And that was sort of, if I ever had a persona, I think it was that.
You were like one of our buddies, our best buddies.
A huge compliment. Thank you. I think you get it. And that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
With the long,
and, you know,
with the long curly hair back in the really early days.
for a while. I think I cut my hair right after Jeff Tate from Queensryche did and John Bon Jovi did. I thought, I don't want to have long hair anymore. Too much product. Spending half my paycheck on product. Yeah.
Now we've got the documentary tour coming up. And what drew you into being part of the documentary? Because I know several of you are involved.
It was fun reliving with Sean Menard, the director, being interviewed for like an hour and a half or something, and just reliving those days. There was a while where I sort of tried to get away from my musical journalism past. And I think there enough time has come and gone where we can look back at Much very fondly. And there's a whole generation that knows nothing about music television and how it was presented in Canada and how it broke artists and how it, you know, was presented and gave viewers a chance not just to be entertained, but informed as well. Whereas, you know, yeah, you can call up any video you want. You can call up any video you want on YouTube, but it's not the same. You're not going to get the commentary. You're not going to get up close to that artist. And I think that's what's missing from a lot of entertainment these days. And I watch entertainment. I still do. I'm still involved in entertainment with what I do now. But I remember we can let interviews breathe. You can talk to David Bowie, a very smart guy, very well read, and let him talk and have a conversation. And then it became about a 10-second soundbite. Well, we can't have an artist talk for more than 15 seconds. It's got bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And it became less about the art and it became more about who's got cellulite, who's in rehab, who's dating who, you know,
and
what
attention span completely gone.
Yeah. And I think depending on who you ask, they'll say, well, that was the problem with Much, as people just lost their attention span. I think the problem was you stopped giving them the chance to have an attention. That's just the way the industry went. And I believe I got out at a great time.
Yeah.
And reinvented myself a few times. And it's sort of come full circle now with what I'm doing here in Kingston. A morning show where I co-host and co-produce, and I can have any music artist on I want. And I've embraced that past, that side of me again.
That's
because
wonderful.
I can do it. Yeah, I can do it on my terms. And certainly moving to Kingston, you know, being a hip fan for so long and then interviewing them over the years many times, and then moving to Kingston and reacquainting friendships with them for the past 11 years, that has been very special as well. I just had Paul Langlois on the show a couple of weeks ago. I have a book coming out in August, and Paul Langlois did the forward for it. He emailed me. I asked him if he can do a forward for the book, and he knew I was writing a book, and he said, yeah, sure, I'd be honored to. Anyway, he sent it to me in February. He was in Costa Rica. He emailed it to me because I needed it to get it to the publisher. I cried when I read it. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Good. We'll make sure we promote the book when it comes out here on the show so that people know all about it. That's exciting.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the book because I know this is about 299 Queen Street, but it was important for me to get the book out this year because coincidentally the doc was coming out this year. It was my 35th year anniversary of being in television this year. There just seems to be a lot of things going on this year.
Congratulations on that milestone. That's incredible.
Yeah, go figure it. I'm only 29 still. How does that happen? I don't know. Weird.
So I'll be looking forward to seeing you do the tour across Canada, of course, for the documentary. Before we wrap up this interview, I wanted to ask you, who was one of your broadcasting heroes over the years?
A lot of people I worked with. I could say Denise Donlin, huge influence on me, and altered the career of my life a couple of times, not just hiring me, but guiding me, allowing me to make mistakes and I think believed in me enough where I could jump off a cliff and have wings appear. And I think I credit her for that, and I thank her for that. Steve Anthony, for sure. Christopher Ward. Anyone I've worked with, not so many from other stations or other places. Terry David Mulligan, another much name. Yeah, so I had the greatest of teachers, and I worked with them all, and that's the amazing thing.
Not many people can say that.
No kidding. I'm very lucky, actually. And I get to hang out with and talk with Naomi, too.
Yes. Oh, you made my day. It's going to be a great episode. I'm excited. So I've talked with Erica, and I've talked with Stephen at the Sock. That was a fun one, too, because he had asked me, who do you want to talk to? And I said, I want to talk to Stephen. I really do. Like, learn about him. And it was a great, great time. Do you ever foresee any kind of a reunion other than this documentary for MuchMusic or Much fans?
There was one last year. We got asked to MC an event in Bradford, Ontario. It was like a MuchMusic video dance party, and Steve Anthony was there, and Tony was there, Master T, and Rick and I were there, and that was a little bit of a reunion. That was a lot of fun. I saw Michael Williams at an event in Toronto late last year. Erica and I talk a little bit still, and yeah, a full-on reunion. This is, I think, the closest that we're all going to come to it, and that's the other beautiful thing about this documentary is, it's getting friends together, friends that haven't maybe spoken 5, 10, 20 years together again. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Good. Well, thank you so much for making the time today, Bill. It was a pleasure to chat, for sure.
Naomi, it was all my pleasure. Thanks for being interested.
All right. Well, see you on the tour then. I'll come check it out.
You take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Social media, yeah, we've got it. Send us an email, dopenostalgiapodcast@gmail.com. Twitter, Nostalgia Dope. Or on Insta, dope_nostalgia.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work.